Hello dear learners, welcome to SWAM NPTEL course on Methodology of Educational Research, and I am Dr. Sarita Anand from Department of Education, Vinay Bhavan, Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, and today we will talk about on the module 22 on qualitative methods of research part 2. Part 1 we have completed. Now this module is on the design strategy and themes of qualitative inquiry, and this is the lecture 22. And before going to the lecture, we will go through the concept covered. Earlier we have completed the qualitative research method, its meaning, nature and concept, different characteristics, different types, and also focused on the researcher's role and reflexivity and data collection procedure in the qualitative research methods. And now in today's lecture, we will start with the qualitative research method and going to the different designs. So, according to the Best and Kahan in 2014, there has been much confusion over just what the qualitative research is. Earlier there was confusion, and one of the problem is that the qualitative research is often described by a negative. This is the research that is non-quantitative, and this is the problem for two reasons. What are those problems? First one is some qualitative research result in some quantification, like counting the number of the occurrence of a particular behavior, and the second one is it represents a negative connotation that qualitative research is only what quantitative research is not. So, this is misconception actually, rather than the positively stating what it is. So, the issue might be more accurately put that quantitative research is based on the logical positive paradigm, which utilizes experimental research methodologies, whereas the qualitative research is based on the phenomenological paradigm, which uses a variety of interpretive research methodologies. So, the qualitative research methods in another problem facing is the understanding qualitative research methods lies within the misconception that qualitative research is unitary approach, which when the reality qualitative research is a variety of alternative approaches to the traditional positivistic research, most of the found in the literature. So, this is the confusion. A variety of the terms have been used for the various forms of the qualitative methods, including ethnographic, case study, phenomenological, constructivist, participant observational, and others. And according to Erickson in 1985 uses the term interpretive. So, you can note it, interpretive, to refer the whole family of approaches to the participant observational research. In his book page number 119, you can see that one of the most common type of qualitative research method, and he uses this term which could be used for all qualitative methods, because it avoids the suggestions that approaches are simply non-quantitative. It is more inclusive than some other terms like ethnography, and a key feature of this family of qualitative research of approaches is that the researcher plays a more central role in the description and the interpretation of the behaviors observed in the research. So, qualitative research methods by the Lincoln and Guba in 1985 refers to this type of research as a naturalistic inquiry, which implies that participants' observational technique result in more natural approach than the test, survey, and the like used in the more traditional quantitative approaches. So, one is saying that interpretive, other one is saying naturalistic inquiry. Marshall and Roseman in 1999 suggest that the qualitative research offers opportunities for the conducting exploratory and descriptive research that uses the context and settings that search for a deeper understanding of the persons being studied. So, qualitative research uses different form of data from those used in the traditional research methods, which we in previous lecture we had discussed. As Patton in 1990 set forth, the qualitative methods consist of three kinds of data collection. Patton has mentioned, first one is in-depth open-ended interviews, second one is direct observations, and third one is written documents. The data from the interviews consist of direct quotations from the people about their experiences, opinions, feelings and knowledge. The data from the observation consist of detailed description of the people's activities, actions and the full range of interpretational interactions and organizational processes that are part of observable human experience. And in other hand, document analysis in qualitative inquiry yields the excerpt, quotations or entire passage from the organizational, clinical or program records, memoranda or the correspondence, official publications, different reports, personal diaries and open-ended written responses to the questionnaires and the survey are the part of document analysis. And the qualitative research studies use these techniques in isolation or in the combination. What are these techniques? In-depth open-ended interviews, directional observations and written documents in different forms. Now, the term epistemological assumptions of qualitative research. A broad term, epistemological assumptions of qualitative research or the approach state that there can be knowledge of things in themselves, but only of things as they are accessible to the human consciousness, and human beings can examine their own experiences of reality and describe these accurately. Thus, qualitative researchers believe the participants' opinion signifies several realities, and this backdrop is the important in understanding the phenomena that is being studied in the research. These epistemological beliefs lead to the understanding that the researcher's bias and perspectives must be recognized to analyze the results. In other words, you can say that epistemologic qualitative research center around these points like resistance to the naturalization of the social world, importance of the life world concept, transition from observation to understanding and from external to internal point of view, and an appreciation of double hermeneutics. And this epistemologically qualitative research is the having essence of the in-depth study. So, other epistemological assumptions are based on the logic, which researchers are generally used in qualitative researches. In the qualitative researches, like inductive logic includes the acquisition of knowledge from the lowest rank to moving up through the several observations. This makes the base for the developing theories or law in future after completing the study. So, deductive logic, with the inductive logic, there is deductive logic on the other hand moves from the top to down, and it starts with the theory from which a hypothesis is derived and applied to observation about the world. In retroductive logic, a researcher tries to fit in different models, recognizing the mechanism that might have generated a certain set of patterns in the data, making use of researchers to categorize, or abductive logic, or include capturing a technical account from participants' accounts of daily activities, ideas or beliefs. So, epistemology of qualitative research also underlines that knowledge is value mediated. That is, it reflects that values of those individuals who produce or receive it. So, this knowledge is value mediated of that participant or the respondent. A qualitative research model of the given by the Maxwell, he mentioned that in a qualitative study, the activities of collecting and analyzing data, developing and modifying theory, elaborating or refocusing research questions and identifying and dealing with the validity threats are usually going on more or less simultaneously. each influencing all of others. So, in addition, the researcher may need to reconsider or modify any design decision during the study in response to the new developments. This is the opinion of Maxwell in 1998. Qualitative research requires a broader and more complete model or efficient model for design than the more conventional designs described in the previous chapters or the lectures. So, Maxwell in 1998 proposes a model consisting of 5 components for conducting qualitative research. These components can be phrased as questions that researcher need to answer in conducting the study. The first one is, what are the goals of the study? This is the statement of the purpose of the study or the question in the that will hopefully be answered just as an logico-positivistic research question. Without a clear idea of the study purpose, and the researcher may lose focus on the key issues to be addressed. So, Maxwell suggested 5 specific purposes of qualitative research. What are those purposes of qualitative research? First one is understanding the way the participants in the study understand the events or behaviors under the study. Second, understanding the context or the environment in which the participants exist. Third one is identifying unanticipated phenomena and influences and generating new grounded theories. The fourth one is understanding the processes that lead to outcomes, and the fifth one is the rare cases developing causal explanations. And the second question is, what is the context in which the study is being contemplated or being conducted? In other words, what is the background or the literature that address the research problem? The researcher needs to understand the appropriate theory, prior researches, literature reviews, personal experiences that is available from which he can draw or she can draw the conclusion to reach the research problem. The conceptual context for a given researcher is what that researcher thinks is going on that explains the phenomena being studied. So, this can be a mini or preliminary theory of the phenomena. The researcher must construct this conceptual context since it does not exist in the objective world, it is in his or her mind. The third one is, what does the researcher want to understand at the conclusion of the study? What is not known and how will the research inform that understanding? This is the question. This is also known as the research question, and this although this question usually occurs at the beginning of the logico-positivistic research, in qualitative studies the purpose and context need to be understood for the question to be formulated. Also, the questions are open to change and are all components of the study while the study proceeds. So, we can change anytime. Fourth one is, what will the researcher actually do? What approaches and technique will be used to collect the data? This also includes the question of who is being studied and how the individuals are selected. In qualitative research, the researcher need to prepare a tentative plan for the study. This usually includes much detail on some components of the study like interview plan, observation plan, but recognizes the plan is open to change. Maxwell in 1998 also distinguishes 4 components of qualitative methods, like first one is the relationship the researcher establishes with those being studied, what time, setting or individuals and what other sources of information are going to be used or decide to use. The third is how the researcher gathers the information to be used, and the fourth one is what the researcher will do with the information to make sense of it. So, these 4 points are very essential before conducting the study, The relationship established by the researcher with the individuals being studied can be complex and changeable, and the researcher's role can range from the being an outside observer to being a participant observer in some ethnographic studies. The sampling technique generally used in qualitative research is referred to as purposeful sampling, purposive sampling. This technique selects certain person, setting or events because they can provide the information desired for the research. The purposeful or purposive sampling can be used to provide unique samples, representative samples or anything in between which can fulfill the research. The aim is that the sample is useful in answering the questions raised by the researcher in his or her research. The gathering of data in qualitative research is a broad topic. A few of the primary methods like observation, interview, document analysis are or maybe discussed in later stages of lecture or chapters when our course will proceed. The fifth one is what alternative explanation may account for the findings. What threats are there to be validity of the finding? Why should these findings be trusted? Maxwell goes into the some depth discussing through critical aspects of research validity for qualitative researches, researchers' bias and effect of the researcher's presence on the research setting or participating individuals. So, researchers' bias due to the presence of the researcher influence may change the finding or result of the study. So, researchers' bias refers to how the preconceived notions and belief of the researcher may affect the data collection or analysis. This is not dealt with by somehow eliminating the bias as would be attempted in quantitative studies, rather it is part of qualitative study, and how it is affects the study needs to be discussed by the researcher in order for the reader to understand the data properly. Again, with the reactivity of the participant to the presence of the researcher, the qualitative researcher attempts to explain and understand this effect rather than the attempting to eliminate it. So, which is not possible in qualitative research in any way. So, he or she try to explain the situation. These 5 components are not unlike the issues with which all researchers need to contend. However, in qualitative researches, answer these questions may change during the course of study and they are not linear in their relationship to each other. Maxwell mentions that the components form an integral and interactive whole, with each component closely tied to several others rather than being linked in a linear cyclic sequence. Now, the credibility of the qualitative research. Definitely there is a question on the credibility. How credibility will be established? So, credibility deals with the question. What is that question? How congruent are the findings of a research with real? Conclusions thereby arrived as credible and dependable. There are numerous technical issues of credibility. It is generally recognized as the extent to which the data collected, their analysis and related to the credibility. Some of the prominent ones are first one is triangulation, a comparative evaluation of results obtained from different data collection methods, which are interview, observation or more than 2 or other methods. So, reliability, the second one is reliability, the degree of which the data recorded, all arriving at the internal validity, the match between the researcher's categories and interpretational and real data recorded is what actually happened in the research setting. The accuracy of the observation establishes the reliability. Then the internal validity, the threats essentially those related to the observer's effect. Other threats include maturation, history, selection, attribution and the subject effects. And the external validity, the generalizability, the extent to which the results can be used for other researchers in the different setting, which are generally weak in qualitative research, are denoted by expressions like translatability and comparability. So, translatability and comparability is the two factors in here in the expression of the research. There are techniques to enhance the credibility like triangulations, prolonged and persistent field work, copious field notes, low interference descriptions, mechanically recorded data, member checking, verbatim accounts, abundance use of the details, data collection in natural setting, and researchers' role as the participant observation that can handle the or enhance the credibility of the research results. The credibility of qualitative inquiry also depends on the four distinct but related inquiry elements like systematic, in-depth fieldwork, high quality data yields, orderly and meticulously data analysis with attention to issue the reliability, trustworthiness of the inquirer, which depends on training knowledge, past performance and status, and presentation of the philosophical belief of one's self as well as the readers and the users in the value of qualitative inquiry. For example, an essential understanding of naturalistic examination. So, now we will talk about the design strategies in qualitative researches. All qualitative research uses the design strategy of emergent design flexibility and purposeful sampling, and most are naturalistic inquiry. These design strategy indicate that the research is a work in a progress that may change as the data are collected and samples, whether document or the person, are selected for their usefulness rather than for their randomness. So, design flexibility is a staple of the qualitative research that distinguishes it more quantitative research, and in a quantitative design the entire research study is spelled out in great detail before any data are collected, and no changes are made during the course of study, almost no changes. The qualitative researcher initially has some idea about the design, but is open to change the data are collected and analyzed. This permits the researchers to make design corrections to adjust new information and discoveries in his or her research. Another aspect is purposeful sampling or purposive sampling. It is rarely used in quantitative research, in which randomness is the preferred technique. In qualitative research, however, the researcher wishes to study a particular sample of person or the document because of the sample's usefulness. If it is useful for me, I will accept it as a sample. The researcher is thus aimed at explaining the phenomena rather than making a generalization. We already mentioned. The third design strategy is naturalistic inquiry. It is used in almost all the qualitative researches. The ethnographer and the other using this strategy let situation unfold. They observe without any attempt of manipulation or control the environment or outcome. In certain type of qualitative researches like philosophical or historical research, there are no observations of the real world, as this strategy is irrelevant. So, now we will talk about the themes of qualitative research. According to Patton, this theme is as mentioned by the Patton in 2002, he proposes 12 themes that indicate or inculcate the qualitative research. These themes are summarized in table 8.1 in the Patton's book and are what makes the various qualitative research methods both distinct from the qualitative method and similar to each other. Although not all qualitative methods are consistent with these all 12 points, they all have most of these elements or the themes in the common. At the same time, quantitative methods based on the logico-positivistic paradigm do not adhere to any of these themes. The 12 themes are divided into 3 categories: design strategies, data collection, and fieldwork strategies and analysis strategy. So, let us start with this themes of qualitative inquiry given by Patton. I have just copied the table for your easy understanding, and he suggested, the Patton suggested the first, that is design strategy. It has 3 parts: naturalistic inquiry, emergent design flexibility, and purposeful sampling. In naturalistic inquiry, a description was given that studying the real world situation as they unfold naturally, non-manipulative, non-controlling, openness to whatever emerges, lack of predetermined constraints on findings. This is the description of naturalistic inquiry. Then emergent design flexibility, openness to adapting inquiry to understand the dependence or the situation change. The researcher avoids getting locked into the rigid design that eliminates responsiveness and pursue a new path to discover they emerge. And the purposeful or purposive sampling, the case studies for the people, organization, community, culture, events, critical incidences are selected because they are information rich and they are useful for the researcher's study, and illuminate that they offer useful manifestations of the phenomena of interest. Sampling then is aimed at insight about the phenomena, not the empirical generalization from a sample to a population. So, I found this table very much useful for the learners. The second type is data collection and fieldwork strategy. That is why I have changed the color, so you can identify the differences. So, here they divided in different parts, like first theme is qualitative data, observation that yields detailed thick description, inquiry in depth, interviews that capture direct quotations about the people's personal perspectives and experiences, case studies, careful document review, etc., are coming under this qualitative data. Then personal experiences and engagement. The researcher has direct contact with and gets close to the people, situation or the phenomena under the study. Researchers' personal experiences, insight are an important part of this inquiry and critical to understanding the phenomena. And the third one is empathetic naturalistic mindfulness. So, this empathetic neutrality and mindfulness is talking about the empathetic stance in interviewing seeks various understanding without judgment, that is neutrality, by showing openness, sensitivity, respect, awareness, responsiveness in observation. It means being fully present or mindfulness in the field. The last one is dynamic system. This attention to process, assume changes as ongoing, whether focus is on individual, organization, community or entire culture, therefore, mindful of an alternative to system and situation dynamics. Now, the third one is analysis strategy. Here in analysis strategy, the unique case orientation is there. The unique case orientation assumes each case is special and unique. The first level of analysis is being true to respecting and the capturing the detail of the individual case being studied. Cross case analysis follows from the depends on the quality of the individual case studies. The second one is a inductive analysis and creative synthesis, and this is overall this is 9th point. And immersion in the details and specifics of the data to discover important patterns, themes and interrelationships begins by the exploring and then conforming, guided by analytical principles rather than rules, ends with the creative synthesis. This is the description of inductive analysis and creative synthesis. Then 10th one is in the third part of analysis strategy, that is holistic perspective. The whole phenomena under the study is understood as a complex system that is more than the sum of its parts. Focus on the complex interdependency and system dynamics that cannot meaningfully be reduced to a few discrete variables and the linear cause and effect relationship. That is why this part is taken. So, the last two numbers of the categories of analysis strategy is context sensitivity and voice, perspective and reflexivity. So, regarding the context sensitivity, Patton mentions that places finding in a social, historical and temporal context. Careful about even dubious of or the possibilities of meaningfulness of generalization across the time and space, emphasizes instead careful comparative case analysis and exploration or exploiting the patterns of possible transferability and adaptability in new situations. And the last one is voice and perspective and reflexivity. Here Patton gives the description that the qualitative analyst owns and it's reflective about his or her own voice and perspective. A credible voice conveys authenticity and trustworthiness, complete objectivity being impossible and pure subjectivity undermining credibility. The researcher focus becomes balance, understanding depicting the world authentically and in all its complexity while being self-analytical, politically aware and reflexive in consciousness. So, this was the whole table was taken from the Patton in 2022 and you can go through the page 40 and 41 and you will find this similar table. So, now the conclusion. Qualitative research emerges a distinct and rigorous approach to inquiry that cannot be adequately defined merely at the absence of quantification. This was the misconception, and as highlighted by the Best and Kahan, the longer standing confusion surrounding qualitative research largely stems from the negative and oversimplified descriptions. So, this whole lecture tries to, in contrast, qualitative research is firmly grounded in the phenomenological and interpretive paradigm, emphasizing meaning, context and human experiences rather than measurement alone. So, it is not a single uniform method, but a broad family of approaches such as ethnography, case study, phenomenology and participant observation that share a commitment to understand social reality from the perspectives of the participants. As reflected in Maxwell's interactive research model, qualitative inquiry is flexible, iterative and responsive, and with research question, design, decisions, data collection and analysis evolving simultaneously. So, overall qualitative research provide a powerful, impactful, resourceful framework for exploring the complexity, context and the process, making it particularly valuable for the educational and social research. So, I have given the full references whatever I have mentioned in this whole lecture. Again I am mentioning this is the methodology of educational research course, and content is being taught here is taken from the renowned reference research books like Cohen, Creswell, John W. Best and other writers like Rosman and Patton etc., and the Maxwell also. So, if you want to go in the details, you can go for the further readings. So, I hope you will keep studying, keep learning, and if there is any query you can ask in your discussion forum in later stages. Thank you.